Okay, good morning and welcome. This is a general workshop on proposal writing. What we learn here today can be used for any funder, federal, state, private, etc. This is not specific to any DHHL grant application. The application has not been publicly released yet, so there's really nothing there we can really talk about. So today we're offering this just to help beneficiaries with grant writing in general as you search for funding for your community projects. I would like to introduce June Oto. She is the trainer consultant. She has worked with Hawaiian Homes for many years and was part of the old Kulia Ikanu'u training program. So she was one of our trainers years ago. So she's met many of you, and there's a lot of new people too. So I'm glad to be here and to have this, be able to sponsor this workshop for you. So let's go ahead and get started. Go ahead, June.
Aloha. As Gigi said, my name is June, and today I'm going to give you a whirlwind tour of proposal writing. We're going to try to cover a lot, but this video will be posted on the DHHL website along with the handouts for future reference. There will be 2 opportunities to ask questions. There will be a 5-minute break, and we'll have a Q&A just before that. And then we'll have another opportunity at the end. So please hold your questions for those 2 times. You can also post your questions in the chat window, and Gigi will kind of monitor those. Slide 2. Oh, there we go. So this is what we're going to try to cover today. It's pretty extensive, and we're going to move quickly, but we're going to start with talking about the components of organizational capacity and move on to the program development process. We're going to cover public versus private funding and what exactly is a proposal. And then we'll have a Q&A session and a 5-minute break. Then we'll move on to organizational description. How do you write an organizational description? What do you include in your capacity statement? And then how to write a needs statement, what you would include in your project description, in your goals and objectives, work plan and timeline, evaluation, and sustainability. If we have time, we will also cover budgets. And then we'll have a Q&A at the end. Okay, here we go. Next slide. Not working? Okay. Organizational capacity. What is organizational capacity? It's the ability, the competence, the skill level, and experience present in your organization. Adequate capacity equals success. So this is the state of your organization right now today. What are you able to do? And funders are very, very interested in what your capacity is, and there will usually, if not always, be a question related to capacity in any proposal. When a nonprofit, let's see. When a nonprofit grows, it must develop capacity in 7 areas. So you are in charge of your capacity building. It's not something that DHHL is going to do for you or any other funder is going to do for you. It's something that you have to take responsibility for as a part of your association. So take a couple of seconds, I'll give you 30 seconds to jot down what you think are 1 or 2 capacities of your organization. An example would be, my board understands its roles and responsibilities, or we have a volunteer accountant. Just grab your pencil and a piece of scratch paper and jot down 1 or 2 capacities that you think your organization has. Okay, if you then post it on the chat, what you came up with. Okay, ready to go on? Next slide, Gigi. Okay, there are 7 components of capacity: governance, staff leadership, financing, administrative systems, staffing, products and services, and marketing. So of the capacities that you wrote down just a bit ago, in what category do they fall in? Was it a governance capacity, an administrative systems capacity, a marketing capacity? Think about where it landed. So let's look at building capacity. A good way to explore the capacity of your organization is to look at the 5 life stages of nonprofit organizations. And there is a good handout available on the website if you haven't already printed it. And there's a book called The 5 Life Stages of Nonprofit Organizations that the last time I looked was available on Amazon for under 20 bucks. So slide 6. So there are 5 life stages of nonprofit organizations. Imagine and inspire is the first stage. Second, found and frame. 3, ground and grow. 4, produce and sustain. 5, review and renew. Okay. Let's take a better look at these. Next slide. Stage 1. Oops. Okay, stage 1, imagine and inspire. This is when your organization's life, the period in your organization's life when a good idea is brewing in the minds of the founders. A group of people get together and they think, oh, we need to address this problem and we can do something about it. So it's very exciting time in an organization's life when the idea is blossoming and people are getting excited about trying to do something. And the main question is, can we do something? Can this dream be realized that we can come up with a solution to this problem in our community? And it takes people who are entrepreneurial, people who are visionary, not a positional leader. There's no hierarchy yet. Most of the time, if not everyone, is a volunteer still. You're kind of a loose group of people who are trying to do something good for the community. Next. Stage 2 is found and frame. The dreams and visions of stage 1 assume structure. So the main question is, how are we going to pull this off? You know, you may have a paid or volunteer director or coordinator. This person kind of drives the organization, is kind of single-minded, visionary, entrepreneurial, charismatic. You want to start getting something done, some structure to your organization. Next. Ground and grow, stage 3. This is when the nonprofit is concerned with building its foundation. You're defining and expanding yourself as an organization. How can we build this organization to be viable? Okay, this is when you might get your first paid staff person. And most of the decisions get made by a small group or by that individual. And you have a base of personal relationships that shape the leadership of that organization. Next. In stage 4, this is when you produce and sustain. This is when the nonprofit becomes really productive, well-established. You have a track record. You have a reputation in the community. You feel secure in your structure and your services. You're a recognized player in your field. And the question becomes, how can this momentum be sustained? So you want a well-rounded director, a capable communicator, someone who can delegate skills. And this is when you really are at the peak of your performance. Next. And stage 5 is called review and renew. In this phase, the organization basically reinvents itself in some way, shape, or form through a process of review and renew. The organization is trying to reconnect with its roots and revive the elements that helped it reach stage 4. So the question is, what do we do? What do we need to redesign? And you need to understand change. This is when change happens. I see a lot of organizations going through stage 5 from time to time. It's often kicked off when, for example, an executive director or a founding member leaves. And all of a sudden, the organization is going, whoa, how can we maintain this? What do we need to do? How do we fill that void? Or a major funder pulls out. And so all of a sudden, you have to redesign your programs, how you're going to function, who's going to be on the staff, who's going to be let go. So it's very common in the nonprofit world for organizations to go from stage 4 to stage 5 and have to renew themselves, have to reinvent themselves. So how do we know what stage we're in? There is, next, Gigi, there is an assessment tool, an organizational assessment tool called the 5 Life Stages of Nonprofit Organizations Assessment Tool. And we have also made this available on the website. And why would you do an organizational assessment? An organizational assessment will help you improve your services. It will help you project future needs. It will help you make good decisions. It will anticipate challenges and it will alleviate stress. When I worked in my first nonprofit organization, and it was a growing venture starting from scratch, if I had known that all organizations went through these 5 stages, it would have alleviated a lot of stress in my life because I felt very alone. But then I realized that all nonprofits go through this similar issues, similar problems, similar stages in their growth. If you can imagine raising a child and not knowing that the child is going to go through developmental stages over the years from childhood to adolescence to becoming an adult, that knowledge of the developmental stages helps the parents better meet the needs of their kids and prepare for opportunities and challenges associated with each of those stages. Well, it's the same way with the organization. We can better help our organization move forward if we're aware of which life stage they are in. Now, every organization is unique. So there are patterns, there are similarities across nonprofit organizations. No organization will be exactly the same, but there are these patterns that you can use. Some organizations move through their life stages more quickly than others. There are organizations that stay at stage 1 for a very long time before they start to have structure. There are organizations that reach stage 2 and stay there for a long time. Or there are organizations that get to stage 2 and in a year, they're in stage 3. So, you know, that how long you stay in a stage is very flexible, depending on what's happening in the organization and what resources and opportunities are available to that organization. So the handout, the Life Stages Assessment Form that's available to you on the DHHL website is for you to share with your board members, with your staffers, with your volunteers. I highly encourage you to use it as a group so that your staff and or your board members understand what stage your organization is in. And each stage has its weaknesses, has its strengths. Each stage has its challenges. And to be able to anticipate those challenges and strategize around those challenges and be able to plan, okay, it looks like we're in stage 3. How are we going to move to stage 4? What steps are we going to take as a board and as an organization to move the organization to stage 4? If in fact you want to move to stage 4, you may not. You may be comfortable staying where you are, but at least you understand what stage you're in. And when you start to write a proposal, you can explain to the funder where you are in the development of your organization. Okay. Now, I want to spend a little time talking about I want to spend a little time talking about program development. Program development is a process. What's the difference between program development and capacity building? Capacity, remember, is the ability, the competence, the skills, the experience present in your organization today. Program development is the process that will expand or grow the capacity of your organization. It helps you identify and take what I call the logical next step for your organization. It's the intersection between need and opportunity. And that's a very important aspect of community development or program development. You need to document the need in your community for your project. And if you have a need and you can't find an opportunity to fund that need, then nothing's going to happen. On the other hand, if there's opportunity, but you can't document need, nothing's going to happen. You have to have that combination of need plus opportunity to move forward with your project. Just as a logical next step for Amazon might have been to purchase Whole Foods, or the logical next step for a nonprofit might be to provide transportation to its senior clients that it already serves. A logical next step might be for a workforce program to open a cafe for job training. Maybe an environmental group can expand by sponsoring watershed protection field trips for students. A health clinic might expand by opening programs for Kapuna. So think about, what is the logical next step for your organization? And program development will bring change to your organization. Program development will bring money to your organization, and money will bring change. So what is needed for successful change? Next, Gigi. So change is an interesting thing. And some of us love change and some of us hate it. The great majority of people feel very awkward in when they're going through change. And when your organization is going through change, your staff is going to feel uncomfortable. And they're going to focus on what is lost, not what is gained. This is the job I've been doing all this time. And all of a sudden, I'm not going to be doing that. People feel alone, even though everybody in the organization is experiencing that change, people feel alone. So there are things that you can do to help them not feel alone when change is occurring. The other thing to keep in mind is that people can only handle so much change. So think about gradual change, one change at a time. And people are at different levels of readiness. I, for one, love change, but I realize that a lot of people fear change. And so, there are different levels of readiness for change. And people also feel that they don't have enough resources. Oh, now I'm asked to do this other thing. Do I have enough skill? Do I have enough experience? Do I have enough money? Do I have enough other resources, other staff to accomplish this? And it's very natural as us humans to revert back, to resist the change and go back to want to go back to how it used to be. It's very, very common. Okay, next, Gigi. So when you think about adding programs to your organization, you have current services and current people that you serve. One way to add would be to take the current services and add new clients. Okay, so you already offer a transportation program to seniors. So now you in the homestead, let's say. Well, now maybe you can add transportation services to people in the surrounding area of your homestead. And it might be a small revenue generating enterprise, or you might be able to get a grant from someplace like the Area Agency on Aging to expand your transportation program. The other way to look at it is you have current clients like your seniors, and maybe you want to take and add new services to those folks. So you're already serving seniors with transportation, but now maybe you want to expand and do Meals on Wheels. So it's a new service to the same people. When you're thinking about adding programs, growing your organization, the most dangerous is to try to do a new service with new clients at the same time. So keep that in mind, okay? A new service with new clients, very, very difficult, very difficult. Next, Gigi. So these are June's 9 rules of program development to kind of sum up what we've just gone over. And rule one is that good program development is based on community need. Very important. You need to understand the needs of your community. Rule number 2, program development, as I said before, is the intersection between need and opportunity. Need plus opportunity will enable you to grow. Rule number 3, organizations that reflect and learn will grow stronger and wiser. If you are an organization that takes the time to understand what stage, life stage you're in, and what is needed to move your organization to the next stage, you will be more successful than an organization that's just out there not really understanding what's going on. Number 4, it's not just your idea. Funders want to see that it's not one person driving an organization, but there is networking, there's outreach, there's partnering, there's collaboration, so that it's a group enterprise. Number 5, if you build a strong organization, money will come. Because funders are looking for good organizations to fund. So you build a strong organization, money will come. Number 6, nonprofit organizations evolve. As we talked about earlier, each stage has its strengths and its weaknesses. But understand that they do evolve, that organizations evolve. Number 7, program development identifies the logical next step. Number 8, it will cost more than you think. And that happens a lot. And number 6, there's a lot of money out there, you guys. There is a lot of money out there. So how do we get our hands on that money? Okay, I'm going to talk next about some different resources, different funding sources. Next, Gigi. I know that a lot of organizations like yourselves look first at DHHL and maybe OHA for funding. But I want you to start thinking bigger, expanding where you look for money. So I want to talk a little bit about the difference between public and private funding, because there's a whole world of private funding sources out there that you may not have taken advantage of. So in the private world, giving a general support grant is not that uncommon. They understand that organizations need general support as well as project-specific funding. So you might get both. You will have private sources that offer one or both of those types of funding. In the public sector, federal, state, county, you're going to get project-specific funding only. They are only interested in the project. They're not interested in all that other stuff that goes into keeping your organization viable. In the private sector, application guidelines have all kinds of due dates. And I've seen many foundations that just say, our due date is rolling. It's anytime you feel that you want to apply, you just submit something. In the public sector, the application due date is always a hard deadline. It's in the RFP, the request for proposal, in the notice of funding availability, the NOFA, in the solicitation notice. There's a hard deadline, and it is not negotiable by 1 second. In the private sector, you can use guidelines, directories, annual reports to get information about that funder. In the public sector, it would be the Federal Register or the agency's website for more information. In the private sector, the grants are commonly under 100,000, sometimes multi-year, and sometimes bigger. It depends on the relationship that you develop with that particular funder. But the public sector, the grants can go up into the millions, and sometimes are also multi-year grants. The private sector, the application process is usually pretty simple. I've done a lot of private sector applications that were 3 to 10 pages long, plus the attachments, and maybe a form or two, a page or two of forms to fill out, you know, like your name and address and stuff. The public sector, the government, they want to know everything about you. So their applications are usually quite lengthy and detailed. There are also many forms and many attachments. I have, in the private sector, I've written a proposal with 10 pages or about 10 pages and gotten like, you know, $30 million. In the public sector, to get $3 million, I had to do a proposal once that was 2 3-inch binders thick. Nowadays, everything is electronic, of course. I'm thinking of the old days. But those are some of the differences between public and private funding. Gigi, next. Also, private sources are only going to fund 501c3s. So if you have your IRS 501c3 determination letter, you will be eligible for private sources. Public sources, sometimes they say we will fund 501c3s. Sometimes they will say we will fund 501c3s and others. So there are instances in the public sector when you would be competing with private for-profit enterprises. So you want to keep that in mind. The private sector has great discretion in funding. They can kind of decide and they can wiggle the criteria or their interests, depending on their board or their trustees. On the public side, they follow a very, very bureaucratic process. No wiggle room. On the private side, personal contacts are pretty important. Of course, nowadays, because so much is online, it's become harder to establish those personal contacts. But they're still, I would say they're still important. In the public sector, not so much. In the private sector, usually the staff actually make the recommendations to the board. So if you have a relationship with the staff of a foundation, or a corporation for that matter, you can hopefully influence them to lobby on your behalf when they go to the board. And public sector oftentimes uses outside reviewers and the staff to rate the applications and select who will be awarded the funds. So if you're going to apply for public money, that would be federal money, state money like DHHL, or county money. Gigi, next. You need to ask yourself some hard questions. And actually, I don't have it on here, but the first question is, am I eligible? Federal, or not just federal, but government funding, public funding, will have some pretty strict requirements for who is eligible. They will explain that or clarify that out right away in the RFP, who is eligible. And you want to know right away if you're eligible. If you are not eligible, don't even bother reading the rest of the document. So if you determine that you are eligible, then you want to ask yourself if you're prepared to give up some flexibility and autonomy. Because with government funding, there's going to be strings attached. I can guarantee you that. The other thing is whether you are set up to collect and compile information for reporting. Because the government is going to ask you to report at least, maybe monthly, but at least quarterly, and do an annual report and a final report on your project. Another element that you need to consider is your accounting system. Is your accounting system set up so that the government funds can be recorded separately? Because the government, if the government gives you $100,000, they're going to want to know how you spent that $100,000. Not how you spent your $200,000 budget for the year, but how you spent their $100,000. And you need an accounting system that can keep track of it that way. Another aspect is certification and insurance requirements, because oftentimes the government will require you to have a certain amount of insurance or have certain kinds of certifications. So you need to pay attention to those. And lastly, can you remain true to your mission if you take this money? And that's an important aspect as well. Next. Okay, let's take a look at private funding a little bit deeper. In the private funding world, there's both corporate giving programs and private foundations. And there's a big difference between the corporate giving programs and private foundations. Corporate giving, corporations are in the business of making money, okay? Private foundations are in the business of giving money away. Big difference. Corporations give away money to enhance their public image. It's part of their marketing. They want to look good. They want to have their name on a banner over the door or on the building site, or a room named after them. On the private side, because they're in the business of giving money away, the federal government requires that they pay out 5% of the market value of their investment assets annually. So in some cases, the private foundations, they have to give money away. They have to get that money out the door if they don't want to get in trouble with the IRS. So sometimes you'll find yourself, the private foundation finds itself at the last minute trying to get rid of some money to stay out of trouble. And one of the bigger grants that I ever got was because a foundation was brand new and they couldn't get the 5% out in their first year. So they were being scrutinized by the IRS. And so I approached them and said, I can do you a big favor. I can take 5% of your assets or 10% of your assets. And you won't have any problems with the IRS. So that's how I got one of my bigger grants. And actually it was part grant and part no interest loan. In the corporate giving program, the funds are usually small, under 10,000 usually. Sometimes I've seen 25,000. Private foundations, the grants can vary considerably, the sizes of grants. You might get 5,000, you might get, 2 million. It depends on what your project is, how strong your organization is, and what the resources of the private foundation are. In the corporate giving program, because they're trying to look good, they're interested in communities where they have a presence. So you look around in your community, who's doing business here? What big corporations are doing business here? Because those are the ones that you want to talk to. Those are the ones you want to look at to see if they have a corporate giving program and what they're interested in funding. Corporate giving programs, because they're in marketing, because they want to look good, they prefer non-controversial programs. Feeding the hungry might be something, helping the seniors might be something. Private foundations, on the other hand, they want to have impact. They want to be able to say, we invested X number of dollars in this nonprofit, and as a result, this changed in the community. They want to have impact. So keep that in mind. Okay, next slide, Jean. You're trying to do two things at once. There. Okay, so let's think just a little bit about what grant makers want. What does the funder want from you? Okay. They want you to read their guidelines. They want you to disclose important changes or facts. If you lost your executive director, they want to know that. A friend of mine that does proposal writing training, she always tells her audience, grant writing is telling the truth. Is you want your grant maker to understand what's going on in your organization. So if you have any issues, any problems, any legal issues, financial issues, staff changes, you need to disclose those as part of your narrative. They also want you to realize that grant makers have limits on their funds, their time, and their authority. They can't fund everybody. They want you to submit progress and financial reports on time. And this is a biggie, they don't want you to take rejection personally. Do not take rejection personally. Next, Gigi. Now, what do you, as a grant seeker, as an applicant, what do you want from a funder? You want guidelines that you can understand, that's clear, that says this kind of project is eligible, that kind of project is not eligible. You want them to return phone calls or meet with you or visit you. They're not always going to do that, but it's nice when they do. You want them to be honest with you, just as you have to be honest with them. You don't want them to mislead you, to tell you that you have a chance, that you should submit a proposal if in fact you have no chance of being funded. You want them to kind of stay out of your way. If you're working on something, you don't want them to impose their ideas or change the direction of your project. And I worked on a project where the grant maker wanted us to do things completely different, and we walked away from the money because we were sure that our way was better. And you want them to explain why they're not funding you if they turn you down, and to offer suggestions for other ways of getting funded. Grant makers are an interesting group, especially, well, I will say in both the corporate giving programs and in the foundation world. The staff of those kinds of organizations, they move around a lot. And so they know each other. They go to conferences together. They have panel discussions with at conferences together. They see each other. They know what's going on in that world. And so it's not uncommon to, or it's only right actually that you ask them, okay, you're not going to fund us. Can you tell us about any other funding opportunities? Do you know of other foundations that might be interested in the kind of work that we're doing? And I have had that happen where a foundation has turned us down, and I've asked them and they said, you know, there's the other foundation. I was talking to their program officer last month, and I think they might be interested. Let me give them a call and introduce them to you. And that was great entree into another foundation and another opportunity to apply for funds. Okay. Now I want to move on to what is a proposal. What is a proposal? A proposal is a persuasive presentation for receipt of resources or funds. It is also your organization's marketing tool. Even if you don't get funded by that entity, submitting a proposal will introduce them to your organization. It will give them an idea of what you do and what your capacity is. And it will give them an idea of your organization's role in the community. It will also tell them your strengths, your capabilities, and your accomplishments. So a proposal is truly an introduction to your organization, whether you get funded or not. Next, Gigi. A proposal must demonstrate, number one, that you have done your homework. Your project is relevant to the funder because funders will tell you what their interests are, and they're very specific. The project is important and meets a critical need. They want to be convinced that there is, in fact, a need out there. Your proposal must show that you have an effective and feasible approach to solving a problem. Your project will have to have a measurable outcome, and we'll talk about outcomes in a little bit, and that you have the capacity to be successful. You have the capacity to pull it off. So your proposal needs to convince the funder that you can be successful. Next. So when you start a proposal, think about your unique features. What makes you the best at what you do? Why should a funder give you money over another organization in your field? And what do you offer the community that they can't get anywhere else? Next. Okay, we're going to look at the major components of a proposal. Generally, a proposal will ask for a summary. And sometimes they'll say one paragraph or 2 sentences or 1 page, but a clear and concise summary of your request. They generally ask for an agency description or history or capacity statement. What are your qualifications? What is your credibility? What is your track record? They generally ask for a problem statement or needs statement. You need to document the needs to be met or the problems to be solved or addressed by your proposal. And then there is the project description, which will include your goals and objectives for your project. This project description will establish the benefits of the funding in measurable terms. Often, they will ask for a work plan or a timeline, or sometimes both. And we'll take a look at what those might look like. But this shows them that you understand the activities involved in meeting your goals and in what order and in what time frame you will do those activities. Evaluation is generally an important component, but there are many ways of showing evaluation and doing evaluation. And we'll talk about that, but you want to have a plan to determine the degree of success of your project. Sustainability or other future funding is also a concern. Grant makers early on figured out that, you know, they would love to fund you for your first year or 2 or 3 of a project, but they want to know that after that period of time, they can go off and use their money to help somebody else, to help another organization do something else. So how are you going to keep that program going? Because the worst thing that can happen is that the foundation decides not to fund you anymore and the program goes away. And that's not just the worst thing that can happen to the foundation. It's the worst thing that can happen in the community, and it's the worst thing that can happen to your credibility in the community, because the community isn't going to understand that. This organization used to help us get to medical appointments, and all of a sudden they quit. Boy, I don't support that organization anymore. It's very important to think about and have a plan for how you will keep the organization and the programs going. And lastly, a proposal will ask for the budget and a budget narrative. So it clearly delineates the costs to be met by the funding source, and also shows what you as the applicant is bringing to the table, or other parties. You may have two funders for one program, and to show how much is being paid by one funder and how much is being paid by funder number two. Okay. Next slide. Let's, are there questions, Gigi, that I need to address right now, or have you been taking care of them?
There's a couple of questions, I think, for me.
Okay, go ahead. Why don't you take this time to answer those?
There's a question on I need you to go on mute. Oh, you are, okay. There's a question on when the DHHL grant application is publicly released, will there be workshops held afterwards? Unfortunately, no. There are no workshops scheduled after today. There will, however, as part of the state procurement process, there will be a RFP, request for proposal, orientation session. Those will be virtual and they will be scheduled. So please keep checking the DHHL website for the dates and times when they become available. There's another question. Does DHHL offer technical assistance for preparing the grant application? No. That would be considered a conflict of interest for the department to assist anyone with their applications. So that's not available. I'm sorry about that. And then as far as the slides, if you send me your email address, I can email it to you. They are not yet on the website. Sorry about that. So I will talk to our communications people to put it on the website when they can. Let's see, any other questions at this time? Did I miss anything in the chat?
Yeah, Gigi, I didn't chat it, but this is Kapua. So I understand that some neighbor island folks came to Oahu for the class this week. Is there any possibility that you could go to Maui or Hawaii Island? Should
No.
that
Yeah,
desire be there? Because there's a lot of loss or missing information between an 8-hour session and a 2-hour Zoom. So
yes, I totally understand. One thing I would ask, and I did ask, or actually they brought it up, the beneficiaries yesterday. I would ask that any beneficiaries on the phone today, please, I would encourage you to talk with your commissioner, even come to a commission meeting to bring back the trainings and to offer these kinds of trainings. We were just very fortunate to be able to squeeze this one out from some leftover budget that I had last year. So I have no budget for training classes or programs like I used to before. I was only given budget this year purely to give out in grants. So, but like I said, I was able to squeeze in this training, at least to get something out there. And today's session is being recorded for future viewing. But you're absolutely right. A 2-hour virtual training cannot be compared to a two-day in-person training. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. But I just did not have the resources to do that.
Thanks a lot. Mahalo. Olua.
Okay, mahalo. Any other questions?
Okay, let's
Okay.
take,
Go ahead.
let's take a short break. It's 10:57, so about 5 minutes. You want to get up and stretch, get a drink of water, do whatever. And we'll start up at in 5 minutes. Okay? Thanks.
Gigi, hey, June, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Are you still in Washington?
Yes.
No, you're still in Washington.
Hi, June.
Hi. Oh, Doreen, gosh, I haven't seen you in so long.
It has been a while. You look wonderful.
Yeah, wow, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
I have a stupid question.
Okay.
A lot of times, when I'm looking for funding, people ask me, do I have a white paper? What's a white paper?
I'm not exactly sure. I think it's a description of your philosophy of your organization.
Hmm,
So it's the mission statement.
An expanded mission statement.
And does every organization need to have an ED?
No,
We're too small. We don't have, it's only
yeah, no.
70.
Every organization should have a mission statement and
Yeah.
maybe a vision statement. But other than that, I wouldn't spend any more time unless it's really required by a funding, by a proposal.
I mean, these are stupid questions that I didn't want to ask. How many times can you go back to the trough? In
I
other words, is there organization, like you said, maybe Meals on Wheels is an important organization, so this association does it. But if it's that important, should it be a county or state function to do that? Because let's face it, most nonprofits, they're not getting paid yet.
Well, Meals on Wheels, I mean, if you're talking specifically about Meals on Wheels, that's generally funded through the Older Americans Act.
Yeah.
So it's federal
So it goes back
agency
to
on aging.
government funding, not
Yeah.
necessarily private. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But my question is, how many times can you go back to the trough in general? There must be a limit, because I feel getting funding after 4 years, you should be on your own. Whether it's a fundraiser or
You know what, it depends. And Gigi stepped out of the room, but I don't think there is a real limit to how many times you can go to the trust, but I think that the trust is gonna want to see that you have the ability to become more self-sufficient, that your programs can run after a certain period of time without their money. And I'm going to talk a little bit about program sustainability and how you address that later on this morning. But any funder wants to see that they don't have to fund you year after year after year after year. They want to see that you can keep your program going after it's well established without their money.
I mean, it's like a child that you have raise a child to a certain point, you pay for his education, but after that, they're on their own.
Yeah.
They got to grow up, right?
Yeah,
gotta
they have to grow up.
depend on bank of mom and dad.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah, well, Doreen recognized you right away.
Yeah. Wonderful to see you again.
It is.
Yeah, so I guess we gotta start fundraising to bring Gigi over.
Is Gigi up with you?
No,
Gigi's here in the room with me.
oh, she's there in Washington, or you're
No,
here?
no, I'm in couple A right now.
Oh, okay. That's why I asked you. Doreen said you live in Washington.
I
so-
live in Washington, but I'm in couple A right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Anyway, nice talking to you.
Yep.
It was almost 5 minutes.
Okay. Our 5 minutes are up. Can we get the PowerPoint back up? Okay, next slide. Okay, so we're going to start looking at the various components of a proposal. And the first section is the agency description or history that describes your qualifications or capacity. So at your desk or wherever you are, jot down a few items that you would include in an organizational description or capacity. I'll give you a little bit of time, 30 seconds or so, to think about what would you include. An example would be your mission statement, right? You would put your mission statement into the agency description and history. What else would you include? Okay, next slide, Jean. Okay, so hopefully you got some of these. But things that you might include in an organizational description or capacity statement, obviously your mission statement. If you have a vision statement, you would include that as well. You want to give people a little bit of history, when you were founded, how long you've been in business, something like that. Talk a little bit about your staff. You don't want to go into great detail, but how large your staff is. Maybe talk a little bit about your executive director and the qualifications of that person. Or you might want to talk about how many volunteers you have if you're a volunteer organization. You want to establish your track record. So what programs do you offer currently? And who benefits from those programs and how many are served? For example, I have a client who finances affordable housing. And so when I write a capacity statement for them, I always say this organization has financed 6,000 affordable homes. So you want to have give the funder some sense of how many people you serve, or how many meals you serve, or how many people you transported, or how many buildings you built, that sort of thing. You want to talk about your track record, about you have other funders, you know, do you have other programs, and how successful are they? Focus on your accomplishments. What are the things that you're proud of? Financial stability. You want to talk about your accounting system, that you have financial statements maybe that are provided by a CPA, or that you have financial audits annually and that they're available. Talk about your board of directors, who serves, what are their strengths, what do they represent? Are they people who live in your community? Are they people who work in other organizations that are related to what you do? Do they have specific responsibilities or talents, skills that contribute to your organization? Like, do you have a lawyer on your board? Do you have a CPA on your board? If you're doing healthcare, do you have an MD on your board? And what other features are unique to your organization? Now, the challenge with the organizational description is that often there is a word or character limit. So what I usually do is I put everything in there, and then I shorten it to meet their character or word limits. Because usually they do have those. And so you have to trim it. But try to get as much in there as you can and make sense. But it's really an overview. It's really to establish your organization as a viable entity. Okay, now we're going to talk about the need statement. Next, Gigi. The need or problem statement must give the reason behind your proposal. I suggest that you work on the need or problem statement early in the process of writing your proposal, because you may have to do a bit of research to finish this section. You may have to do some focus groups. You may have to do a survey. The need or problem statement must give the reason behind your proposal. Clearly state the importance of your project. Support claims with statistical data. What is the median household income in your community? What is the unemployment rate? How many seniors do you have over the age of 60? Whatever is relevant to your project that you can provide statistically, and balance the grand scope with the realistic focus of your project. You may be able to say there are X number of seniors in your community, and your project is going to serve 10% of them or 20% of them. And what is that number? The other thing about need and problem statements is you want to keep it simple. You want to minimize technical jargon. The people that are going to review your application, they're not experts in any particular field. I mean, they might be an expert in one particular field, but they probably aren't going to understand a lot of technical jargon. So keep it very simple, but explain things clearly, and end your problem statement with a brief, strong summary statement. That would be my recommendation. Next, Jean. In a needs statement, avoid the circular argument. An unacceptable needs statement The problem in this community is we have no agricultural training program directed at youth. Acceptable, the need is for an agricultural training program for youth. Do you see the difference? And you want to give details. How many youth in the community? How many have expressed an interest in training? What are the job prospects for unskilled versus youth with work experience? What jobs are in demand? What's the poverty rate and the unemployment figures in your community? Those are the types of things that you would put into the needs statement. So you don't want to say, an example of a circular argument. The need is for agricultural training. The objective is to start an agricultural training program. The method is to set up an agricultural training program, and the evaluation will depend on whether we started one. That doesn't work. It doesn't fly. Okay. You need to describe the need. And as I say, how many youth in the community and how many have expressed an interest and all of that stuff. And you want to look at what are the job prospects for unskilled youth and youth with work experience? What jobs are available and in demand? You know, if you're going to do agricultural training, are you talking about irrigation, horticulture, fixing tractors, learning about soil, even veterinary services, you know, taking care of the animals. And is this, so anyway, the needs statement has to include more and avoid that circular argument type of thing. Next, Tej. Okay, on to program or project description. So once you've established the need, that's the why of your project, then you want to do the project description. For what do you need money? So think about, if you can even jot down one sentence that describes your project. We need to provide health screening at the community center. We need to provide agricultural skills training for youth. We need to build an assisted living project for seniors in our community. We need to add a computer lab in the community center. We need to protect the nearby watershed. We need to fix and widen the road and add a bike lane. What is that one sentence description of your project? From that one sentence description, you start adding details. Remember, the why is your need or problem statement. The what is the project description. And we will be addressing the when we do the work plan and or timeline section of the proposal. So the why is the need, the what is the project description, and the when is the work plan. Your project description should include a detailed description of what you plan to do. Who will do it? Who will be your partners? Who will benefit? Will you use volunteers? Is this an extension of an existing program or a brand new one? Will you hire new staff? How will you reach the beneficiaries or the program participants that you want to serve? Let me go and just give you one example of the things I listed. Let's say that your organization wants to protect the nearby watershed, and your project description should include who will be involved. Do you have expertise in watershed protection? What are your qualifications to do this project? Will you be hiring a consultant? You want to tell that to the funder. Will you partner with the county, with the state, with the EPA? Will you use volunteers? How will you find those volunteers? Will you be building any infrastructure, any fencing, any drainage? Where will you get the equipment for the project? Those are all the details that are part of that project description. And remember to address all the issues that are listed by the grant maker in the guidelines. Okay, next slide, G. Next slide. There. Okay. Oh, did we miss one? Did you skip one? No? Okay, well, I'll just explain this. In the project description, whether it's asked for or not, it's very beneficial to list goals and objectives. I suggest that you limit the number of goals. 1, 2, or 3 goals is plenty, depending on how much money you're asking for. The more goals you have, the more complicated your project looks, and the more reporting you're going to have to do. So limit your goals to 1, 2, or 3. And when you decide what those goals are, ask yourself, can I measure this goal? And what is the plan to measure the goal? How are you going to do that? Okay, and specify a target date or a time frame for your project. And ask yourself, is the project attainable within the costs? If you're asking for $20,000, can you do this with $20,000? And evaluate the goal. Is this a good goal for this project? Does it reflect the amount of change that we want? Remember, this whole process is about change. Change that will happen in your organization and change that will happen in your community. So goals should be SMART. Specific, meaningful, agreed upon, realistic, and trackable. SMART. Specific because you want to pinpoint exactly what the performance is that is being sought. Meaningful. Make sure the goal meets the needs of your community and moves the organization closer to its mission. Agreed upon. Make sure you have the commitment from the people who will help you achieve the goal. Do you have community support? Do you have other people in your community that are working with you on this project and you're all on the same page? Realistic. Set a goal that is moderately difficult but challenging but attainable. Ask yourself, could we really do this in the time frame with the money that we're asking for? And trackable, develop a system for tracking performance. Define how you will measure success. Next, teach. So goals must include the what, the when, the how much, the how many. Okay, I'm going to give you some examples. To improve the local community park, that's a what, by recruiting 60 volunteers, that's how many, from local organizations within the 12-month grant period, that's the when. So that goal gives the what, when, and the how much, how many. Another example, to increase the number of youth activities, that's the what, by 10%, that's the how much, within our community by September 30th, 2026. That's the when. One more example. To increase awareness of heart disease and stroke prevention, that's the what, for 50, that's how many, community members by September 30th, 2026. That's the when. Okay, so the goals should include the what, the when, the how much, how many. Next slide. Common mistakes writing goals and objectives. People really have trouble doing this. It's tough, it's challenging, but it's the heart of your proposal, because this is telling the funder what you expect to accomplish and how you're going to accomplish it. So one of the common mistakes is that the writer states the problem rather than the goal. An example would be, there is a lack of adequate training on stroke prevention. That is the problem. That's not the goal. The goal would be to improve the health of our community by providing on-site training, the what, to 20 community members, the how many, on stroke prevention in a 1-year period, the when. Another common mistake, the goal specifies procedure rather than outcome. Goals should be outcomes, not methods. Statements beginning with to provide, to establish, or to create indicate method or procedure. Statements beginning with to increase, to decrease, to reduce, those types of statements indicate outcomes. So a goal that specifies procedure would be to provide transportation for senior citizens. A goal that specifies outcomes, which is what you want to do, is to improve the health of senior citizens through the provision of transportation, that's the what, to 500 medical appointments for 200 unduplicated seniors, how many, in this fiscal year, the when. So the goal should not specify procedure, but it should specify the outcome. What is the change that is going to occur? Another common mistake is that the goals are not specific. An unspecific goal is to provide training for community youth. That's not specific. A better goal would be to increase agricultural skills, the what, for 30 community youth, the how many, over a 1-year period, the when. Another common mistake, too many goals. This is a poor goal: to provide training, acquire equipment, start an equipment lending library, and hire consultants. A better goal would be stated to improve the health of our community by starting an early detection health screening program, the what, to screen at least 50 community members, how many, over a 1-year period, the when. Another common mistake, the goal is trite or insignificant. A poor goal would be to place 10 people in jobs. A better goal would be to increase employment opportunities, the what, by placing 10 community members, how many, in job training or internship programs or positions within a 1-year period, the when. And lastly, the goal is too broad to be practical. A goal that's too broad to be practical, to train all youth in construction skills. A goal that's more specific, to improve the self-sufficiency of youth, the what, by training at least 50 youth, how many, over a 1-year period, when, in construction skills. Okay? Common mistakes in writing goals and objectives. Next slide. Goals are the ends. Objectives are the means. Goals are the ends. Goals reflect what's going to happen, what change is going to happen in your community because of this project. Goals are the ends. Objectives are how you're going to get there. So here is an example. The goal might be to increase youth employment by offering construction skills training, that's the what, for at least 50 youth, how many, over a 1-year period. When? The first objective is you would seek partners to teach the classes and provide work experience opportunities. The second objective might be to finalize the curriculum and to finalize logistics. Where are we going to have these classes? Where are we going to do the work experience? What does the curriculum look like? How long is the curriculum? The next objective is to advertise the program, to recruit and screen the applicants. And lastly, to conduct a 4-week program for 25 youth, to evaluate that program, revise it if you need to, and repeat the program for a second group of 25 youth. So you have 50 youth trained by the end of the program. You can go on. I mean, you can have another objective to celebrate the kids that completed the training with certificates and gifts. You can have another objective to survey the participants and the instructors to help evaluate the program. You can have another objective to submit a report to the funder. So these are the steps to get to that goal, to meet that goal. And you don't have to do every little tiny step, just the kind of the chunks of steps, if you can follow that. So the goals are the ends. What's going to change? The objectives are the means. What are the steps? You're telling the funder, this is what we think will happen in our community. This is the change that will happen in our community. And we know what we're doing because these are the steps we're going to take to make that change occur. Okay. Next, Gigi. The work plan or methodology, or oftentimes called timeline, is another piece that describes the steps to be taken to achieve the goals and objectives. And in the work plan or the timeline, you need to clearly describe the program activities. The funder wants to know, what's the sequence of activities? How is it going to flow? How are they related to each other? You need to describe the staffing plan, the client population or client selection and marketing. Oops, I just lost the page, Gigi. Okay. You need to present a reasonable scope of activities within the time and resources available, and discuss anticipated problems and solutions. Now, the format for this section can be a narrative, it can be an outline, can be a table, can be a chart, and you as the grant writer needs to choose the method that most clearly describes your activities. Again, you do not want every single little detail. So next slide will give us a sample work plan. So this is just a sample, a start really. First of listing the task, and then who will do it and when it will get done. So the first task might be to identify construction skills in greatest demand. And who's going to do that? The manager. And when are you going to do that? The first week of your contract. And if you want to do subtasks, the subtask would be things like you would interview companies that hire construction workers and find out where there's a shortage. And you would interview employment agencies and find out what they think is the shortage in construction skills to help you determine what you want to include in your curriculum. And then the second task, also to be done by the manager in the second month of the grant period, might be to develop the curriculum and the training plan. And how will you do that? The subtask might be to identify the trainers from the local community and from the local educational institutions and the job training programs. And secure the necessary space for the training events and develop the marketing and registration materials. I have a friend in Alaska that did training for Native Alaskans on construction skills, and he was able to use an old high school that the high school had moved to a new building, and there was an old building there. And he was able to get the University of Alaska to provide the trainers for the construction project, and the Native Alaskans learned to build houses and were actually building houses in their community as part of the project. So again, the project manager would do it and would do it in month 2, or maybe it would take 2 months. And you would say month 2 and 3, however you want to, however you think is realistic. And then another task would obviously be to be conducting the 4-week training 2 times over the period. And to do the training, you would secure the necessary space. You would schedule the trainers, the guest speakers, the field trips, and you would survey the participants and the trainers to assess the program on its success. One possible way of presenting your work plan. Next slide. Another way of doing it is a more of a timeline thing where you list your activities and what's going to happen month 1, month 2, month 3. You know, so the first activity, identify construction skills and demand. You would do that in month 1, and develop the curriculum you would do in month 2, and conduct a training in month 3. Or maybe develop the curriculum would be an X at month 2 and an X at month 3, and the conducting the training would be in month 4. However you think is realistic, okay? And show the funder the sequence of events so they get a feel, and they can look at it and think, is this realistic? Can they actually develop the curriculum in 30 days? Or are they going to need 60 days to develop that curriculum? They're going to look at that and see how realistic your timeline is. But you need to be honest with yourself and realistic about what's feasible. What you as an organization, with the amount of capacity that you have, what you can accomplish. Okay, moving on. The next stage that we're going to talk about is evaluation. And evaluation is often kind of scary for people who are new to proposal writing, but evaluation measures the extent your project met its goals. So if a funder gives you $100,000 to do construction training for youth, they're going to want to know, how do we know that you met your goal? So evaluation measures the results of your project, and it also measures the process. So it does 2 things. It measures the results. Did you meet your goal? Did you do the training for 50 kids? And it measures the process. Did you follow the steps in your work plan or your timeline? If not, why not? What can be improved in the process? They don't expect you to be perfect. They want to know that you looked at what happened and that you are assessing whether it worked and how well it worked and what you would do differently if they came back and gave you another $100,000 next year to repeat the program. How is it going to be better based on your experience in the first year? Okay? An evaluation can be in the form of documentation, of monitoring, and reporting. Next slide. Why would you document and evaluate? Well, the first reason might be to meet the funder's reporting requirements, because if they give you money, they're going to want to report. It might be a monthly report, it might be a quarterly report, it might be a final report, but they're going to want to know, they're going to want a report that documents how you spent that money and what change occurred in your community as a result of it. They want to see that you were successful and that you also detected problems and made improvements. They want to know if your evaluation can provide input for future planning. And a nice thing about evaluation is it can assure staff accountability and improve staff morale. I mean, isn't it great to be able to say to your staff, wow, we set out to train 50 youth and we did it, you know? What a great feeling. Let's go out and celebrate. So evaluation is a good reason to do evaluation. Next. Questions to ask when you design your evaluation process. Who should do the evaluation? Maybe it's the executive director. Maybe it's a volunteer who has some experience or in evaluation, or a student who's studying evaluation. It may be the project manager or the project coordinator, or it may be an outside evaluator. Depending on the size of your project, you know, evaluation can be this really big deal or just this little thing that has to get done. Consider how much it will cost. Is it going to take 1% of your executive director's time? That's cost. There's a dollar figure attached to that. Are you going to have to hire an outside evaluator? Are they going to charge you $100 an hour? And who will use the evaluation? You want to tell them, let's say, I would suggest that you tell them that you're going to share the evaluation, not only with the staff, but with the board, so that you can assure the funder that your evaluation is going to be seen by the board of directors, and that they will have a chance to look at it and consider it and ask questions about it and make their own suggestions. And you will want to know how to collect the data and report it. Okay, so you need to spend a little time designing your evaluation process. Now this isn't a scary process, you guys. There are lots of ways to show that you have been successful. Next slide. Evaluation can be in the form of documentation, okay? You might have internal progress reports. You might have records of time. You might have agendas that you saved, number of meetings that you had, number of attendees. You might have sign-in sheets. If you did a workshop or you did classes, if you have sign-in sheets, that's a form of documentation that contributes to your evaluation. You might have calendars that show, okay, we had a staff meeting on this day to talk about the construction program. We had this day to do our marketing plan, and this day was when the final day for signups, and et cetera. You might have people applying for the job, so you have a set of application forms. That's part of the documentation for your evaluation. You had slots. You had 50 slots to train people, and you had 100 kids apply. You might have questionnaires. You might have questionnaires that ask the kids, what do you know about construction right now? and a post test of what have you learned. You might have interview notes, client survey forms, client intake forms, all kinds of stuff for documentation that exit interviews, all kinds of stuff for documentation that will contribute to your evaluation. Another form of evaluation is monitoring. Next slide. Okay, monitoring. And monitoring are things like pre and post tests, focus groups, community interviews, training assessments, surveys, and assessments. So that's another form of evaluation. Next slide. There's evaluation in the form of reporting, quarterly reports, interim reports, year-end reports, focus group findings. If you did quarterly reports, when you have to do your year-end, if you did quarterly reports, you will have compiled information to document what happened. And then those quarterly reports would feed into the year-end reports. Okay. Next slide. I hope we have the right one. Oh, we do. Gigi asked me to talk about the logic model. And the reason is that she intends to include the logic model as a component to the next round of her grant program, RFP. So when you get the RFP from Gigi for the next round of funding, don't freak out when you see the requirement of the logic model. This is a new component. And the logic model, don't panic, because the logic model is really stuff that you should have and probably had thought about in the process of writing your proposal. It's just a matter of taking that information and putting it in the right boxes, okay? It's a method that's been adopted by a number of funders to simplify evaluation. Now the logic model, okay, I have a handout. First of all, it's called The Logic Model, A Beginner's Guide. And I think, Gigi, you're putting that on the website, right? So it'll be available to you. But I will give you the highlights right now. There are 4 components to the logic model: inputs, activities, outputs, and outcomes. Inputs is what your organization will invest in the program. Okay, so that means you are going to bring staff, perhaps, volunteers, money, time, equipment, materials, technology, partners, whatever you are investing in the program. It's the input. And then the activity is what the proposed program will do. So are you going to train youth in construction skills? Are you going to tutor kids to get into college? Are you going to teach financial literacy? Are you going to serve meals to seniors? What is the program going to do? So what are the activities? And the outputs are the direct results of those activities. The how much, how many. So the number of youth that you trained in the example we've been using, the number of students that you tutored, the number of meals that you provided, and the outcomes are the benefits realized in the population served by the program. So that's the goal, right? The outcome is the goal. What difference did the program make in the community? That's the goal. Sometimes outcomes are broken down into 3 categories, and I'm not sure if Gigi's going to do this, but they might ask for initial outcomes, intermediate outcomes, and long-term outcomes. So there's good examples in the handout for what those three types of outcomes look like to guide you in filling out the logic model form that you're going to get as part of the RFP. One way to look at this, next slide, is that the logic model is a depiction of if-then relationships. If we invest these inputs or resources, then the activities can take place. If the activities take place, then the outputs will result. If the outputs result, then the outcomes will be achieved. And the outcomes are what? They are your SMART goals. Okay? The handout, I think, will be very useful to you and helpful in doing the logic model. Okay, let's see how we're doing on time. Okay, next, I want to talk about sustainability and future funding. And Doreen was talking about this a little bit earlier, asking about it. But funders want to know that if they give you some money this year for a program and you start to provide services, that those services will continue even if they discontinue funding and want to use their money for something else, or to provide help for another program, another organization. So how will you maintain the program, the equipment, and the services when the grant ends? How will you keep it going? So the sustainability or future funding section will explain how well you thought about the relationship between this grant and your overall organization, and whether you will be able to maintain those services and programs and equipment and buildings being funded after the grant period is over. I remember writing a grant to the Department of Transportation for a van to transport seniors for medical appointments. Once we got the van, I went, holy cow, now I have to pay a driver. I have to pay for vehicle insurance. I have to pay for gas. I have to pay to get the oil changed. Those are the kinds of things they're concerned about. If they give you something or have you start something, how will you maintain it? So think about all the ways that you could maybe leverage other funds. You know, sometimes you can say, well, we have a very experienced fundraiser on our staff who will help us to raise the money to keep the program going. Or every year we do a fundraiser and we always bring in $10,000, and that will help us keep the program going. Or we have 50 donors that give us $100 a piece, and that helps us keep the program going. All the ways that you can show that you have other sources of revenue to keep the program going, and that you have the interest and the capacity to continue to write proposals to other funding sources to help keep the program going. See how we're doing on time here. Okay. Describe your plan for the assumption of funding by other sources. If you in fact have other sources of funding, be sure to list those or talk about those, okay? If you request funds to purchase a piece of equipment or some for some non-recurring cost, specify the other funds necessary to support the acquisition. If your request is for a portion of the cost of a specific project, clearly delineate other sources of funding, both secured and pending for that project. Okay, moving on. Budgets. Budgets must be comprehensive in regard to detail. The budget explains your narrative in dollars and cents instead of words. The budget must be flexible in its composition and consistent with the rest of your proposal. If your proposal says you're going to provide transportation, your budget must include the cost of providing that transportation. If your budget says you're going to hire a consultant, your budget must reflect that consultant's fee in there. It must be consistent with the rest of your proposal. Next slide. So when you develop your budget, ask yourself, are appropriate administrative expenses include? Remember I said one of my golden rules was that it's going to cost more than you think? Think about the administrative expenses. You know, what is it going to take? Time and supplies? Is the budget request reasonable? Does it match the scope of work? You know, are we asking for $100,000 to train 50 kids or asking for $10,000 to train 50 kids? What's reasonable? What is the foundation going to think is reasonable or the funder going to think is reasonable? Have all expenses been assigned to an identified income source? Is the foundation or the grant going to pay for everything? Or are there some other things that are part of the budget that are going to be paid from some other source? Will you have non-cash resources? In-kind resources? And is there oops, that's a typo there, sorry. Is there a match or a cost share requirement? Not uncommon to say, match us 1-to-1, dollar for dollar. Or I think DHHL might say, if you match 1-to-1, you get extra points. So be aware of what the match and cost share requirements are. Okay, next slide. Budget tips. My suggestion is that you prepare the budget as you write the proposal. So as you're writing the proposal and saying, we're going to do this activity and this activity and this activity, think about what it's going to cost for each of those activities. Have your accountant or bookkeeper review the budget. Some of my clients actually have the accountant write the budget for them for every single application. Others, the staff person writes the budget and has the accountant or bookkeeper review it before they turn it in, so that just have another set of eyes to make sure that they haven't made any mistakes. And use future cost projections. For example, if DHHL says, we're gonna, your application is due this year, but you're not gonna get the funding till next year, put in next year's salary if you have a salary in that budget. Even if you don't know for sure if you're going to be able to meet that salary, because you can always make a budget amendment or budget adjustment. But you might say, okay, thinking about next year, I'm thinking that with looking at all of our proposals pending, that we're going to be able to give our staff a 5% increase in salary next year. Write that 5% increase into your budget if you think the money's going to come next year. Obviously, you're going to evaluate your staff, and some staff might get a 1%, some staff might get a 3%, some staff might get a 5%, depending on performance. Or you might have a staff person leave and the new staff person is going to make a starting salary. Those kinds of things are going to happen. But when you write the budget, plan for the salary level that you think you will need for the following year. The other thing is avoid typographical, and mathematical errors. There's nothing more embarrassing than having your funder call you up and say, you know, we're looking at your budget and it doesn't add up. So double check your numbers, make sure that you don't have any errors. Next. Usually you're required to have a budget narrative as well as a budget. And this is just explaining where those budget numbers came from. And this is just an example. You can show that your personnel, you can list the position, you know, program coordinator, the rate, which is, you know, how much they make per month or per hour, times the percent of time that's going to be spent on this project will equal the budget amount that you have for your personnel. You might have more than one position, so you have to list them all, okay? Then you'll have non-personnel expenses as well. Travel is a pretty common one. Show how much you expect per month to travel, how many miles, what's the rate per mile, and the number of months that you're going to be traveling. Show how you reach those budget numbers. That's what the budget narrative does. Okay, next slide. I know I'm running out of time. This is just a sample budget. Salaries, mileage, office, it's a simple one. It's oversimplified actually, but it gives you an idea of what is expected in a sample budget. Okay, next slide. Cover letter. More and more, you're not required to submit a cover letter because so much has become so electronic. But if you are required to submit a cover letter and attach it as an electronic file, it's usually signed by the board chair or the executive director. The cover letter should be short and simple, not more than 1 page. You should try to address the letter to a very specific person and spell the person's name correctly. I had a friend who worked for a bank doing grants for a local bank. And he was so incensed when somebody submitted a cover letter to him and didn't spell his name right. Make sure you spell the name correctly. Briefly describe your organization, the big picture, 1 paragraph. Briefly describe your proposal, 1 paragraph. And always offer to be available to answer questions, provide additional information. Next slide. Next. Okay. Okay, finishing up your proposal. I know we're almost done. We're getting on the end. Finishing your proposal, many applications require attachments requested by the grant maker. So some common required attachments, a letter of determination from the IRS, most recent audit, recent financial statement, list of board of directors, IRS form 990 and W-9 form. Okay, next. Now what? And then we're gonna do we'll have a little bit of time for any other questions. So what happens? You submitted your proposal. What's going to happen? You will get one of a number of types of responses from the funder. First of all, you might get acceptance. And my suggestion is if you get acceptance, that the first thing you do is call them up or send them an email and thank them. It's amazing that grant makers do not get thanked. And if you thank them, they'll probably remember you. They might give you more than you requested. That happens. They have leftover money. They want to tack it on. They might approve your application, but not fund you because they run out of money. They might want to negotiate the budget. And if they negotiate the budget, you want to negotiate the work plan. You're going to say, okay, if you're going to give us less, we're going to do less. If you're going to give us more, we'll do more. Or they may reject your application. If they reject your application, find out why. still add them to your mailing list or your email list so that they are reminded that you exist. Ask them if they know of another potential funding source for your project. Ask them for technical assistance to improve your application. Get a list of those that were funded so you can look at who got the money. And watch for staff turnover. Because oftentimes grant makers they'll change who's on their staff and what the priorities of the foundation are. Okay, let's do next slide. If there are any other questions, I know I told you this was going to be a whirlwind experience. Anything, Gigi, that I need to address, or are we?
I think I answered the questions. There was one that was actually for you. And I said, talk to you directly. How could we hire June to present on Molokai? Our county resource center would be a great contact to facilitate. So if I haven't had a chance to really talk to June, but if there are things that follow-up things or questions, you can talk with her directly. You don't have to come through us. But as far as her time, you can hire her on your own and negotiate just with any other consultant. As far as coming through DHHL, we do have a contract with her, but we do have DHHL things for her to do. So, if you'll need to talk to me about that as well. But as far as future workshops, again, like I said in the chat, we do not have any future workshops. We were able to do this from last year's budget. We have no budget this year to do any more workshops. So I would encourage you as beneficiaries to please contact your commissioner and the chairman when it does come the budget time. If this is a service that you would like us to continue, please do advocate for that to the commission to provide the resources for us to do that. We used to have trainings many years ago, but the program was cut, and we haven't been able to offer training since. So if it is something important that you would like to speak with the commission, please do. I encourage you, let them know this is important and something you would like it continued. Somebody did ask how to get in touch with June. So if you want to add your email in there or phone number.
I did.
Okay, great. Anything else?
Mahalo to everybody. You've been a great class.
Thank
June,
you.
June, I have my hands raised.
Somebody has their hand raised?
Yeah, me.
Okay.
3 questions. Friend of mine works for the county. She's a department head. She has to write a lot of grants, so she uses AI,
She uses AI. Oh,
chat GPT, and then she prints it out. She modifies it more into her language. And that's how, because she says, I don't have staff to do it. So she works late at night doing her work. So that's one. Also, I have 2 people, one that works for the federal government, one that's worked for the state. Both were grant acceptors. What do you call that? In other, one of them worked for USDA. He submitted or received proposals for grants.
okay.
And he said, usually what happens, there's so much people looking for free money that the first thing you do, you find every excuse to deny that grant. Like you said, you didn't capitalize this, or you made it two alphabets too long. They use every excuse to do that. Believe me, that's true, because he was doing it for many years in Texas.
Okay.
You know, and so I also know another one that works for DBET, and that's what she used to do when she used to work for the feds too. And she said, because you're so overwhelmed, one person, so you try to whittle it down to the easiest, simplest one that you can understand right away. Anyway, that was their feeling. Next, from what we're learning today, does that apply to grants in AIDS?
Your grants in AIDS?
In other words, doing the proposal, is that the same thing? Because KPFA, Kyokapaneva Farmers Association on the Big Island, just got $5.5 million.
Okay.
A major project, but it's a one-time from the legislature
Okay.
through her representative. But
Okay.
writing for a grant, is that the same process to apply for a grants in aid from your senator or your representative?
Oh. Gigi, do you want to address that?
Yes, and yes.
Oh, hi, Gigi.
Hi.
Yeah, Miley, Lu'uwai. Got
No, yeah, I'm saying yes. It's the
Okay.
same process. You'll
Okay.
have to do extra because you got to work with your legislator,
Yeah.
but there is an application on the legislator website.
Mm,
It asks the same questions.
mm,
Who are you as the organization? Your proposal, your project description, your budget, your work plan. They got a zillion forms on there.
mm.
Yep, a lot of the same things.
Okay. Well, nice.
Funders are funders. Government funders are the same. Many of them are the same. The private sector funders are very different,
Mm,
but for government, it's pretty much the same.
Okay. Well, thank you. It's nice seeing you after all these years. I haven't seen you for a while.
Okay. Mahalo, everybody. Take care.
Hello.
Is there any more in the chat room?
Yeah, Jermaine's got question and I do too.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Check.
Auntie Gigi, I have more of a comment. I don't want anybody to feel that some of the comments made by Uncle Ron about, people are going to give you, looking for excuses to deny applications. When you hear that at the end of a presentation, it kind of gives someone a flat tire, like, oh, that's going to happen. Then the next statement, it was, oh, someone got $5 million is what I thought I heard. But I think it's more important that we, as leaders of organizations or supporters of organizations, if we're going to go after a grant, just go after it. Nothing is easy in life. And people aren't, when it comes to money, it's not going to come easy. You're going to have to put effort into it. And so the money is going to be free. So all your time and effort in applying for money, all that time that you're putting on application, can vet you 10,000, 20,000. That's the reward of the hard work and effort of applying effort and time and, using your mind in order to make your application. Yeah, Chat GPT is out there, but it doesn't know anything about your organization until you put it in. So thinking that ChatGPT is going to give you shortcuts. I didn't like when I heard that bringing up about ChatGPT as if ChatGPT can think for you and can actually describe your organization. You have to put effort into it. Maybe it can make it sound better, but I don't want anybody to get false understanding about ChatGPT or false understanding about the fact that when we're going to do all this effort, we're going to get denied. Yes, we are going to get denied because we're in a competitive, we're going to be competing against others for that same amount of money, but it doesn't mean that we're going to, that we're not going to ever get a yes. So I'm just saying that it's a craft, it's a skill, and it might take time to get a yes, but it's not something that we should give up just from after hearing comments about people are thinking about ways of denying us. But I just wanted to share that, Manao, after sitting here for 2 hours and to hear that, I just wanted to make sure everybody is encouraged and go off and try to do something, because some people do get a defeatist mind when they hear comments like that. Just wanted to share that with my community, Dalahui. Mahalo.
Mahalo for that. Puni, you also had something?
I have my hand up first, Gigi.
Oh, go ahead.
Thanks. Okay, so I want to thank both Ron and Jermaine for their comments, because there's a lot of truth in both of them. But the question that I have for you, Gigi, is, doesn't the department, when they select which homestead associations or which beneficiary projects that they're going to approve and forward, don't they list that as GIAs in their budget proposal to the legislature? Or is it listed as CIPs?
No, not that I know of. I'm not sure what
Is it
you're
listed
referring
anywhere,
to.
or where is it listed in the
Well, what
department
projects
budget
though?
then?
I run the grants program for the department, and your projects would come through a grant application to the department. So I'm not sure what other projects you're talking about.
Okay, so
So is it outside of that?
I've attended a couple of the department gatherings where they bring in leadership. And so I might be misunderstanding it, but when they have those spreadsheets, and it might not say grants, because I think grants would be listed as grants, but where they have projects that we are there for, and they say that it's on their budget, I thought it was listed as a GIA or a CIP. And I'm speaking to the one in Maui, geez, maybe about 10
Oh,
years
you mean the
ago.
Puvalu?
Yeah.
At
So
Puvalu?
so where it's homestead leadership or beneficiary organizations. So, and I speak to that because we have our community park and also our columbarium for Waianae Valley. So that's something that is still near and dear, working on those. But when they had proposed $300,000 for the columbarium, it was in either the GIA or CIP. It wasn't listed as a grant,
Oh.
but when they're showing us the budget that they are sending to to the legislature, that's what they're showing.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what that process is. I did get some clarification that the ones that are listed as GIA, the department is expecting the association to apply for the GIA. We wouldn't do that, and we wouldn't forward anything to the legislature. It's upon the association to actually apply for the GIA, if it's listed as a GIA. The ones that are listed as a CIP, I have no idea. Lehua Kininau Kano handles that side of it. I'm not too involved with that, because I did ask them about the GIAs, because I'm the one that administers them when they get awarded. It comes through my shop. But how they get on there, on those lists to begin with, I'm not sure. But I do know that they told me at one point, If it is listed as a GIA, that means the association has to move forward and apply for it itself. Yeah, that's the only thing I know. Oh, Puni, you have something?
So, yeah, so Gigi, so this is what historically what has happened. Okay, so if you decide to apply for a GIA to the state, you have to get a sponsoring agency. Yeah, a state sponsoring agency. There have been times when your the state, the GIA side, would recommend that you ask DHHL to be your sponsoring agency. So that happened with us when Kaleo was there. So what happens is the state money goes to DHHL to be our fiscal sponsor. Like, so it's still under GIA in the state, but then you're under DHHL as far as DHHL's Kuleana to oversee that grant. So they have to agree, they have to approve it. So DHHL has to approve, okay, planning, yeah, at the time, will be responsible to be the sponsoring agency, but the money is still coming from GIA from the state. Yeah, so
Yes.
that's how it shows up on the listing, cousin. It shows up as a GIA, but it's really not DHHL's money. It's a state. So it's kind of different. Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
so we're still
it's-
applying directly to the
To the state.
legislature. And we're
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
having a previous conversation with the department that they would be our state representing entity so that the
Right.
money could flow through DHHL, but it's through our efforts
Right.
that,
You still
that
gotta
that's going to
apply.
occur or not. See, because
Yeah.
when I saw it on the list, I presumed that it's DHHL that has already
Oh.
certified the project, and I don't know how because I just don't know.
Yeah.
So thank
no.
you for
Yeah,
that
so at the top-
clarification,
At the
cousin.
top of the cover page to GIA, it says sponsoring agency.
Mm.
Some of us, depending on what you're asking the state for, it might be the Department of DBED, might be Department of Economic Development. You contact them and then you ask them, I'm applying for GIA. Could you be my sponsor? They don't say yeah or nay, right? So it all depends. But the state would normally refer Hawaiian Homes to the Office of Community Services, OCS. That's the usual entity that, if not DHHL, it's OCS, and they're really good to work with. So yeah, don't be afraid of them. They're good. They're good.
That's interesting you say that because on the receiving end,
Yeah.
we have seen where homestead GIAs have gone to OCS for them to administer.
Yeah.
We've also seen where non-homestead, but yet still Hawaiian organizations have come to DHHL to administer. So oftentimes there's a lot of mix-up at the governor's office, I think, and BNF on how they actually assign the GIAs to us. I've got 3 right now that are not homestead at all.
But Hawaiian serving orgs.
They're GIAs, they're Hawaiian
Hawaiian serving.
organizations.
Ah.
Yeah, but they're not homestead at all. So it's very strange this year.
Yeah,
I've never gotten a notice from the governor's office on anything from Waianae Valley, if that's the one, if there's something you guys got awarded on.
No, we haven't done it yet, babe.
Oh, you haven't done it?
I mean, I don't even know the process. That's what I'm saying. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
glad that
No, the first
GIA
thing
came
is you
up.
really do gotta apply directly to the ledge. Their application is on their website. It's usually due in January, right before session.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, it's usually due in January.
But
I
really,
don't, I'm assuming it's on their website right now, but they might be behind like me.
the key is making whole money with all your elected officials, because it's really political.
Yes, it's very
It's
political.
very political. Just give your heads up. You gotta pound cement and knock on doors.
Yeah,
You gotta
Yes.
find out who is the head of finance and who is the head of ways and means. And that's the guys you gotta hit. That's the guys you gotta hit.
Hate political.
It's a game. It's a game.
oh, there's a question in the chat box. NHO versus HBA. We can spend a whole week on this, but basically those are federal definitions. The state has not adopted those, so we don't use those designations here.
Yep.
My requirement is I can give grants to any nonprofit in the state of Hawaii. So any nonprofit 501c3 is eligible. I did change the eligibility for the capacity building grant. The capacity building grant is open to any nonprofit, regardless if you are a 501c3 or not. We have a lot of HOAs that are homesteads, so they're not 501c3s. They cannot be. So and we have a lot of new associations that have not yet gotten their 501c3. So that's why we're opening up the capacity building grant. You can apply there. That should help you go get your 501c3 so that you can apply for the larger grants at another point in time. But as far as NHO, HBA, yes, there are differences. There's definitions on those federal agency websites. The DOI, Lisa Oshiro is still at DOI ONAP. She can answer those questions. They have FAQs on the website at the feds. So I'm not going to get into that because it's a federal definition, does not apply to the grants program at DHHL. We still use our own rules. We still use 501c3 nonprofits.
Thank you, Gigi. Mahalo.
Good to see you. Mahalo.
Thank you.
Another question, Gigi?
Yes.
So you said that you serve any 501c3, you're not focused on beneficiary serving?
The rules, so I've been checking on this since I started here, because there's been some misconception about the grants program. The actual rule does say 501c3. The only reference it gives is as long as the assistance being provided is benefiting beneficiaries. And as a person who's come from the nonprofit world, I would want any nonprofit, as long as they're helping the beneficiaries. That's who we would fund. You know, I'm not gonna, I can't really fund a nonprofit that serve the general Hawaiian population, you know, on whatever service they provide. It has to demonstrate direct benefit to Hawaiian Homes Commission Act beneficiaries. That part is very specific. And it's reflected in the RFPs. That no matter what nonprofit you are, I can only take applications where the project description is specific to benefiting beneficiaries. So remember all that June said about project descriptions, the who, what, when, where, how. Make sure that who you're serving is beneficiaries.
Okay, so follow up to that question. I have a C12, which is for like cemeteries, utilities. So ours is an energy project. So when we sent up our 501c3 application, they designated us as utility-like. So we came back with the C4. But we are eleemosynary, which is what is in the department guidelines. So we are beneficiary serving. So would you still be able to service our sustainability co-op, because we have not yet obtained that 501c3 status yet, and in time I
Only
guess we're
under-
going to have to change it.
Yeah, only under the capacity building grant.
Hmm.
Yeah, as far as the other grants, the rules say 501c3 is very specific.
Hmm. Thank you. And thank you to June too. Mahalo nui. for all of your
Mahalo,
sharing.
Gigi.
Looking
Mahalo,
forward to the
Jude.
info.
Okay, then I think that wraps it up. Thank you so much. We will get this recording posted on the website along with all the handouts and slides. Thank you, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Mahalo.
Mahalo,
Have a good
Gigi.
weekend.
Bye.
Bye.
And June, thank you.